The box model is the basis of CSS layout because it dictates how elements are displayed and how they interact with each other. Think of each element on the page as a rectangular box. Each box has certain dimensions and takes up a certain amount of space. Now, the space the box takes up depends on its content and the padding, borders, and margins that may surround the content. So the box model is what describes the amount of space each element takes up on the page. So let's dig a little deeper into this concept by going over the main components that make up the CSS box model. The very basis of designing with CSS is understanding the box model concept. So, as I mentioned earlier, we'll need to begin thinking of every HTML element on the page as a box. And as you can see here, if we apply a red border to every element on our page, each element is made up of a rectangle or box. So in order to effectively understand the CSS box model concept, we need to know the two ways elements are naturally displayed. So every element has a display value depending on what type of element it is. The default for most elements is usually block or inline. Now, block elements form a separate block that takes up the full width available based on the width of its parent element, and it creates a new line before and after the element. Some examples of block elements are divs, paragraphs, any heading tag, or list items. So notice how the block level divs on our page, as well as the headings and lists, are taking up an entire line of content. They're also forcing a new line of content before and after the element. And we can see that as well down here in our footer div. Now, inline elements only take up as much width as they need to. They don't force any new lines, and they stay in line with the rest of the content. Some examples of inline elements are span tags, images, and anchor elements. So notice how the anchor element or link boxes stay in line with the rest of the content in our paragraph. The same thing happens up top in our title span element. Notice how its width only takes up the space of its content. And the reason it's displayed on its own line is because there's a block level H1 element underneath it. The block level H1 is forcing the new line. So now let's discuss how padding, borders, and margins interact with each other to form a box, because it's important to understand. The box in the box model is made up of 4 distinct parts that calculate its size. And visually, it's rather simple, as we can see here. The innermost area and core component of the box is the content area, which is the area containing the element's actual content, like text or an image. Surrounding that content area is the padding area. Padding is often used to give the content area some breathing room by separating the content from the surrounding border area. And the border area of the box is the outermost part of the box. You can think of it as an outline to the box. Although borders are optional, different styles like color and thickness can be applied to them. Finally, the margin area exists outside of the box. It's the space around an element that separates it from other elements. So the most important thing to remember here is the padding area creates space inside the box, while the margin area creates space outside and around the box. So as we can see, padding, borders, and margins are important components of the CSS box model. They are the properties that essentially wrap the content area of a box. So now that we've covered the main properties of the box model, we're ready to put these concepts to work. That's coming up next.